a human engineer found himself alone in the cold, dark expanse of space. His name had once been important, but now it didn't matter. He was stranded on an alien station, left behind after a betrayal. His team had sabotaged the mission, and instead of helping him, they abandoned him to die. The rest of his crew had been quick to leave, disappearing in their ship without a second thought. Alone on the station, with only his skills and the little supplies he had left, he had to survive. The station was massive, a structure built by alien species far more advanced than humans. The design was unlike anything he had seen back on Earth. It was a marvel of alien architecture, with shining metal walls and massive chambers that seemed to stretch endlessly. But it was also cold, silent, and falling apart. The life support system was malfunctioning, and the energy grid was unstable. The lights flickered on and off, casting eerie shadows across the station's empty corridors. The air was thin, and he could feel the weight of isolation pressing down on him. But the engineer wasn't one to give up easily. He wasn't just any engineer. He was trained to think on his feet, to solve problems with limited resources. He knew how to fix things, how to make broken machines work again. The first thing he did was assess his situation. His suit had some basic supplies: water, food rations, a small toolkit. He had no communication device to contact Earth, and the station's communication system was offline. He couldn't stay in the same place, not with the station's life support failing. He needed to move, find a way to make the station habitable again, or at least find some shelter. He had no idea how long it would take for someone to find him, or if they would even bother. But the thought of giving up never crossed his mind. Using his toolkit, he began to make basic repairs. The first task was the oxygen supply. The station had a large oxygen generator, but it was damaged, and the air was becoming harder to breathe. He didn't have much time before it would become dangerous. He spent hours fixing the delicate systems, using his knowledge of Earth technology to make temporary fixes to the alien parts. It wasn't perfect, but it would keep him alive. He connected wires, rerouted power, and slowly the air grew fresher, less stifling. The next problem was food. His rations would last only a few days, and there was no telling how long it would take to be rescued. He had to find a way to survive longer. The station's hydroponics garden, although in ruins, still had potential. He scoured the broken garden, finding some old seeds. It wasn't much, but he had the knowledge to grow food. Using a bit of water, some makeshift tools, and his understanding of engineering, he managed to get a small section of the garden functioning again. It was slow work, but every little victory mattered. Slowly, he was building a life for himself, even in this alien wasteland. Days turned into weeks. The engineer worked tirelessly, using every ounce of energy and knowledge he had. He knew there was no quick way out. No rescue ships were coming. No one even knew he was here. The feeling of being forgotten was almost unbearable at times, but he pushed through it. He had to. His survival depended on it. He spent hours each day studying the alien technology. It was advanced, far beyond what humans could build, but it wasn't perfect. The systems were complex, but not impenetrable. He had worked with alien technology before, during the mission, and he began to see patterns in the designs. There were weaknesses, places where things could be improved. It became clear to him that he wasn't just surviving anymore. He could fix this station, make it better than it ever was. The challenge excited him. He wasn't just trying to stay alive anymore. He was rebuilding. He was improving. He started with the power systems. The station's energy grid was failing in multiple sections, and there was no way it would last long at this rate. He studied the power conduits, noticing how inefficient the alien design was. He spent hours rewiring the main reactors, using the tools he had to boost the output and stabilize the flow of energy. It wasn't easy, but he was starting to see results. The station's lights were brighter, the air felt warmer, and the systems were starting to hum with life again. At night, when the station was quiet, The engineer would sit by a small window, staring out into the vastness of space. He could see the stars, so far away, and the dying star that the station orbited. It reminded him how small and fragile everything was. He knew the station wouldn't survive much longer unless he kept working, but he also knew that he could do it. He had to. No one was coming to save him, but that didn't matter. He would save himself. Little by little, he started to believe that he could turn this station around. It wouldn't be easy, but it was possible. And if he could survive here, maybe, just maybe, he could make this place into something better. Something that no one, alien or human, could have ever imagined. The human engineer found himself alone in the cold, dark expanse of space. His name had once been important, but now it didn't matter. He was stranded on an alien station, left behind after a betrayal. His team had sabotaged the mission, and instead of helping him, they abandoned him to die. The rest of his crew had been quick to leave, disappearing in their ship without a second thought. Alone on the station, with only his skills and the little supplies he had left, he had to survive. The station was massive, a structure built by alien species far more advanced than humans. The design was unlike anything he had seen back on Earth. It was a marvel of alien architecture, with shining metal walls and massive chambers that seemed to stretch endlessly. But it was also cold, silent, and falling apart. The life support system was malfunctioning, and the energy grid was unstable. The lights flickered on and off, casting eerie shadows across the station's empty corridors. The air was thin, and he could feel the weight of isolation pressing down on him. But the engineer wasn't one to give up easily. He wasn't just any engineer. He was trained to think on his feet, to solve problems with limited resources. He knew how to fix things, how to make broken machines work again. The first thing he did was assess his situation. His suit had some basic supplies: water, food rations, a small toolkit. He had no communication device to contact Earth, and the station's communication system was offline. He couldn't stay in the same place, not with the station's life support failing. He needed to move, find a way to make the station habitable again, or at least find some shelter. He had no idea how long it would take for someone to find him, or if they would even bother. But the thought of giving up never crossed his mind. Using his toolkit, he began to make basic repairs. The first task was the oxygen supply. The station had a large oxygen generator, but it was damaged, and the air was becoming harder to breathe. He didn't have much time before it would become dangerous. He spent hours fixing the delicate systems, using his knowledge of Earth technology to make temporary fixes to the alien parts. It wasn't perfect, but it would keep him alive. He connected wires, rerouted power, and slowly, the air grew fresher, less stifling. The next problem was food. His rations would last only a few days, and there was no telling how long it would take to be rescued. He had to find a way to survive longer. The station's hydroponics garden, although in ruins, still had potential. He scoured the broken garden, finding some old seeds. It wasn't much, but he had the knowledge to grow food. Using a bit of water, some makeshift tools, and his understanding of engineering, he managed to get a small section of the garden functioning again. It was slow work, but every little victory mattered. Slowly, he was building a life for himself, even in this alien wasteland. Days turned into weeks. The engineer worked tirelessly, using every ounce of energy and knowledge he had. He knew there was no quick way out. No rescue ships were coming. No one even knew he was here. The feeling of being forgotten was almost unbearable at times, but he pushed through it. He had to. His survival depended on it. He spent hours each day studying the alien technology. It was advanced, far beyond what humans could build, but it wasn't perfect. The systems were complex, but not impenetrable. He had worked with alien technology before, during the mission, and he began to see patterns in the designs. There were weaknesses, places where things could be improved. It became clear to him that he wasn't just surviving anymore. He could fix this station, make it better than it ever was. The challenge excited him. He wasn't just trying to stay alive anymore. He was rebuilding. He was improving. He started with the power systems. The station's energy grid was failing in multiple sections, and there was no way it would last long at this rate. He studied the power conduits, noticing how inefficient the alien design was. He spent hours rewiring the main reactors, using the tools he had to boost the output and stabilize the flow of energy. It wasn't easy, but he was starting to see results. The station's lights were brighter, the air felt warmer, and the systems were starting to hum with life again. At night, when the station was quiet, the engineer would sit by a small window, staring out into the vastness of space. He could see the stars, so far away, and the dying star that the station orbited. It reminded him how small and fragile everything was. He knew the station wouldn't survive much longer unless he kept working. But he also knew that he could do it. He had to. No one was coming to save him. But that didn't matter. He would save himself. Little by little, he started to believe that he could turn this station around. It wouldn't be easy, but it was possible. And if he could survive here, maybe, just maybe, he could make this place into something better. Something that no one, alien or human, could have ever imagined. Months had passed since the engineer had been left stranded on the alien station, and every day had brought new challenges. What started as a mission to simply survive had evolved into something greater. The engineer had not only repaired the station's basic functions, but had also started to uncover its deeper secrets. He was no longer just fixing things. He was beginning to understand the true potential of this place. The station was a treasure trove of alien knowledge, and every corner seemed to hold mysteries waiting to be unlocked. One day, while examining the station's vast storage areas, the engineer stumbled upon something unexpected. He was rummaging through a section of the station that was mostly sealed off, untouched by the chaos of the previous sabotage. As he pried open one of the heavy, alien-designed doors, a strange hum filled the air. Inside, there was a massive chamber, hidden behind layers of debris and old equipment. The walls were covered in strange symbols, and in the center of the room stood what looked like an enormous, crystalline structure. The engineer's heart raced. He had never seen anything like it before. The crystal seemed to pulse with an energy that was unlike anything the engineer had encountered. It was as if the crystal was alive, its energy shifting and fluctuating in ways he couldn't comprehend. He approached cautiously, his breath quickening with anticipation. "What are you?" he whispered to himself, his voice reverberating through the empty chamber. The AI's voice crackled in his earpiece, seemingly just as intrigued as he was. "Unknown object detected. Scanning for analysis," it said. As the AI ran its scans, the engineer continued to study the crystal. It appeared to be made of the same alien material that the station's core systems were built from, but its purpose was unclear. It didn't seem to be a power source, at least, not in the traditional sense. The crystal emitted a low-frequency vibration, which the engineer could feel in his bones. It was as if it had a purpose beyond what he could understand. The AI's scanned results returned with a strange reading. "This object is not a conventional energy source. It is a containment device. Possible connection to station's central system." A containment device. The engineer felt a shiver of curiosity and concern. What could be contained in a crystal like this? And why had it been hidden away in this forgotten corner of the station? He decided to investigate further. Using his tools, he carefully examined the crystal, looking for any switches, buttons, or mechanisms that might trigger its release. After hours of careful inspection, he found a hidden panel near the base of the crystal. It was well concealed, but after pressing it, the crystal began to hum louder, its surface shimmering with an unnatural glow. Suddenly, the air in the chamber grew thick with energy. The engineer stepped back, his heart pounding in his chest. The room felt alive, as if the crystal was reacting to his presence. A low rumble echoed from deep within the station, and the engineer felt the walls around him shake. Was the station responding to whatever this object was? Was it alive in some way? Then, without warning, the crystal cracked open. The engineer flinched, but he didn't move. Inside, there was a swirling, glowing energy, a sphere of light that seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of the station itself. The engineer's eyes widened in disbelief. The crystal had been a prison for some kind of energy or force, and now it was free. The sphere of light hovered in the air for a moment, then shot toward the ceiling with a burst of power. The lights throughout the station flickered, and the engineer could feel the very fabric of the station's systems shift as if they were realigning. He could hear the hum of the station growing louder, more stable. Whatever had been inside that crystal, it was now part of the station, and it seemed to be working with the engineer's improvements. The AI's voice cut through the chaos. Energy levels increasing. Systems stabilizing. Power surge detected. Unknown anomaly present. The engineer stood frozen, staring at the sphere. It was as if he had just unleashed a force that had been dormant for ages. It wasn't clear if it was a good thing or a bad thing. But the station was now more alive than ever before, and there was a sense that he had just uncovered something crucial to the station's purpose. He stepped forward cautiously. The sphere seemed to recognize him, and it pulsed in time with his movements. It was no longer just a mysterious object. It was a part of the station now, interacting with the systems in ways that the engineer couldn't fully explain. "What are you?" he muttered again, his mind racing. The sphere wasn't just energy. It felt like something far more significant. Could this be the key to understanding the true purpose of the station? The AI responded, its voice now more urgent. "This is not a simple power source. This is a connection to the station's central function, its very core. It is a catalyst." A catalyst. The word sent a chill down the engineer's spine. What did that mean? What had he just uncovered? He couldn't stop now. He had to learn more. He needed to understand the connection between this mysterious energy and the alien technology that surrounded him. The stakes were higher than ever, and the engineer realized that what he had uncovered could change everything. With a newfound sense of purpose, he set to work. The station was no longer just a place to survive. It was a puzzle, and the crystal had unlocked the first piece. The engineer was determined to solve it, no matter the cost. The discovery of the mysterious energy sphere had shaken the engineer, but it also filled him with a new sense of purpose. The station, once a place of isolation and despair, now seemed like a key to something much bigger. The sphere's sudden burst of energy had stabilized the station's systems, but the engineer knew this was only the beginning. There was something more to this place, something the station was designed for, and he was determined to find out what it was. For the next few days, the engineer worked tirelessly. The AI had provided him with an abundance of new data, and he pored over it, looking for anything that might explain the station's true purpose. The sphere, it seemed, was part of a much larger system. The station wasn't just a random outpost in space. It was built with a purpose that had been hidden for centuries, perhaps millennia. The more he researched, the more he realized the station's original builders were far more advanced than he had ever imagined. Their technology was not just about power and energy. It was about manipulating the very fabric of space itself. The station was equipped with devices that could harness and control gravitational waves, energy fields, and even time itself. But the most important discovery was something the engineer hadn't expected. The station had the ability to create wormholes. The AI's voice echoed in his ear, almost excited. Data analysis complete. Station's primary function: interdimensional travel. Wormhole creation detected. Calibration of temporal and spatial fields in progress. Wormholes. The engineer's heart raced. He had read about them in science fiction stories and theoretical papers, but to actually discover that an alien station had the ability to create them was beyond anything he had expected. The station wasn't just a place to hide or repair technology. It was a gateway to the stars, to other dimensions, and possibly even to other galaxies. The AI continued, its voice filled with awe. Wormhole creation requires precise alignment of gravitational and energy fields. Incompatible materials detected. Need for calibration is urgent. The engineer didn't hesitate. He immediately began working on the calibration process. The sphere had already begun interacting with the station's systems, and now he had to figure out how to stabilize it. The last thing he wanted was for the station to become unstable again, especially now that he understood its true potential. The engineer worked methodically, using every bit of knowledge he had accumulated over the past months. He rerouted energy from the station's core, fine-tuned the power relays, and adjusted the energy field surrounding the central reactor. Every adjustment had to be perfect. One mistake could cause catastrophic failure. Hours passed as the engineer worked, each moment filled with a mixture of excitement and fear. The stakes were higher than ever before. If he succeeded, the station could become a bridge to other worlds, a place where humanity could explore the unknown. But if he failed, the consequences could be unimaginable. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the engineer completed the final adjustment. He stepped back and took a deep breath. The station's central reactor hummed to life, its energy levels spiking as the AI confirmed the calibration was complete. Calibration successful, the AI reported. Wormhole creation in progress. Temporal and spatial fields aligned. The engineer's eyes widened as he watched the station's massive central chamber. At first, there was nothing, just the usual hum of the station's reactors. But then, the air seemed to shimmer. A faint blue light began to form in the center of the room, swirling and twisting like a cloud of mist. Slowly, it began to take shape, a circular, glowing doorway, stretching open into a swirling vortex of light and energy. The engineer stared in awe. He had done it. He had unlocked the station's true purpose. The wormhole was real, and it was stable. The AI's voice cut through his thoughts. Wormhole stable. Destination unknown. Temporal flux detected. Opening communication channels. The engineer took a cautious step forward, his mind racing with possibilities. He didn't know where the wormhole led, perhaps another galaxy, another universe, or even a different time. The station was now a tool for exploration beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed of. But with this newfound power came new questions. Why had the station been abandoned? Who had built it? And why was it left here, in the middle of nowhere? As the engineer gazed at the swirling vortex before him, he realized that this wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about discovery. The future of humanity could be waiting on the other side of that wormhole, but the engineer knew he couldn't make that leap alone. He would need help. He would need to find a way to communicate with Earth, to tell them what he had discovered, and to bring them here. His thoughts were interrupted by the AI's voice, now urgent. Anomaly detected. Warning. Energy fluctuations detected in the wormhole. Stabilization required. The engineer's heart skipped a beat. He quickly analyzed the data, realizing that the wormhole was becoming unstable. He didn't have much time. He had to act quickly to prevent the wormhole from collapsing. His hands flew over the control panel, rerouting power and stabilizing the energy fields. The AI guided him through the necessary steps, its tone filled with urgency. The wormhole flickered and trembled, but slowly, with the engineer's quick thinking and precise adjustments, it began to stabilize again. After what felt like hours, the wormhole finally settled. It remained open, stable, and ready for exploration. The engineer took a deep breath, stepping back from the controls. He had done it. The station was no longer just a broken relic of a forgotten civilization. It was a gateway to the unknown. And now, the real adventure was about to begin. The engineer stood before the stable wormhole, his heart pounding in his chest. The swirling vortex of light and energy before him was a doorway to the unknown, a bridge to places and worlds humanity had only dreamed of. He had always believed that humanity was capable of incredible feats, but this was something beyond his wildest expectations. For the first time in months, he felt a sense of hope, of purpose. The lonely days on the alien station had led to this moment. He had not only survived, but he had unlocked a power that could change the future of humanity forever. The question now was what to do with it. HFY's voice interrupted his thoughts, calm yet firm. Wormhole stable. No anomalies detected. Time dilation is within acceptable limits. The engineer nodded, his mind racing. This was real. The wormhole wasn't just a theory anymore. It was a tangible thing. He had seen it open, watched it stabilize, and now he had the chance to step through it. But there was still so much he didn't understand. Where did it lead? Was it safe? Could the station handle the strain of repeated travel? He knew he couldn't go through alone. He needed to reach Earth, to contact humanity and tell them about what he had discovered. If he was going to open this door to the unknown, he needed backup. He needed to prepare, to make sure the station was ready for anything that might come through that wormhole. The engineer said, his voice steady but with a hint of excitement. I need to send a message to Earth. Can we communicate with them through the wormhole? There was a brief pause as the AI processed the request. Negative. Current wormhole configuration does not allow direct communication with Earth. However, I can attempt to send a beacon signal through the wormhole to test the connection. The engineer frowned but nodded. Do it. I need to let them know what's happening here. The AI's voice was calm as it responded. Beacon signal initiated. Preparing for transmission. The engineer watched as the AI activated a small device attached to the station's communication array. The device was designed to send a signal across vast distances, but with the wormhole now open, the engineer wasn't sure if it would work. He had no way of knowing whether the signal would even make it to Earth, or whether the wormhole might interfere with the transmission. Minutes passed in silence as the engineer waited. The wormhole continued to hum quietly, its swirling lights shifting and changing, almost as if it were alive. The air around it seemed to crackle with energy, the very fabric of space bending and twisting in ways the engineer couldn't fully comprehend. Then the AI's voice broke the silence. Signal received. Transmission successful. Data sent. The engineer's heart skipped a beat. They got it. The AI responded. Affirmative. The signal has reached Earth. Confirmation of receipt expected within standard communication window. Relief washed over the engineer, but it was short-lived. There was no guarantee that help would come soon. The station's message had been sent, but how long would it take for Earth to respond? Could they even send a rescue mission? And even if they did, what would they find when they arrived? The engineer had no way of knowing. For now, all he could do was wait, but there was no time to waste. He had to keep moving forward, keep exploring the possibilities that the wormhole offered. There was still so much to learn, so much to understand. He turned back to the wormhole, its swirling light calling to him. The possibilities on the other side were endless. He could be the first human to step foot in an entirely new universe, to witness things that no one else had ever seen. But there was a part of him that hesitated. It was one thing to study the wormhole from a distance, but another to actually step through it. What dangers lay beyond? What would he find? But the engineer's curiosity got the better of him. He had come this far, and he couldn't let fear stop him now. With a deep breath, he took a step forward, crossing the threshold of the wormhole. As he passed through, everything around him seemed to stretch and twist. The walls of the station, the control panels, the very air itself all seemed to warp and bend. Time and space were no longer constant. It was as though the world he knew was being pulled apart and reshaped, as if the laws of reality no longer applied. The engineer had to steady himself. It felt like falling, like being pulled in every direction at once. But just as quickly as it started, the sensation faded. He opened his eyes, finding himself in an entirely new place. He was standing in a vast, open space, surrounded by a sky unlike anything he had ever seen. The stars were different here, brighter, more numerous, as if he had stepped into another galaxy entirely. The ground beneath his feet was solid, yet there was something strange about it. It wasn't like the metallic surface of the station, nor was it like the rocky surfaces of planets he had visited before. It was as though he was standing on something alive, something organic. The engineer looked around, his mind racing. He had no idea where he was or what he had just stepped into. But one thing was certain: he had just crossed into the unknown. And there was no turning back now. The engineer stood still, his eyes wide with awe as he took in the strange new world around him. The sky above was a deep purple, filled with stars that shone brighter and more vividly than anything he had ever seen back on Earth. The air was different too, cool but not cold, with a slight hum in the atmosphere that seemed to vibrate through his entire body. The ground beneath him wasn't rocky or solid metal, but soft, like a thick carpet of grass, yet it gave off a faint glow, as if the very earth itself had a pulse. The wormhole behind him was still open, a swirling mass of energy that seemed to flicker with light as though alive. It stood like a beacon in the middle of this strange new world, a link back to the station and everything he had left behind. The engineer had stepped through it with a mix of excitement and fear, unsure of what to expect. Now that he was here, he could feel the weight of his decision. This place was unknown, unpredictable. It could be dangerous. But the curiosity burning in his chest was far stronger than the fear. He had crossed into another universe. Who knew what discoveries awaited? "Aye," the engineer said, his voice steady despite the excitement bubbling inside him. "Any readings on the environment?" The familiar, calm voice of the AI responded almost instantly. "Environmental conditions are stable. Oxygen levels are compatible with human life. Radiation levels within safe limits. No immediate threats detected." The engineer sighed in relief. The AI had been his constant companion, guiding him through the station systems, helping him unlock the mysteries of the wormhole, and now helping him navigate this alien world. But even with the data, he knew better than to trust everything completely. There was no way to know for sure if this place was truly safe. The world around him was silent. There were no animals or sounds of wind, just an eerie stillness that hung in the air. It was as if the entire place was holding its breath. The engineer slowly began to move, his steps cautious, eyes darting around as he searched for anything that might give him a clue about where he was. As he walked, he noticed the strange plants growing all around him. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Tall, with long, twisted stalks that shimmered in the faint light, their leaves glowing softly with bioluminescence. Some of the plants seemed to sway gently, though there was no wind. He crouched down to examine one, his gloved hands reaching out to touch it. As soon as his fingers made contact with the plant, a soft pulse of light ran through the stalk, as if responding to his presence. "This world," the engineer murmured, "it's alive." The AI spoke again, its tone as informative as always. "Possible signs of bioluminescent life forms. Suggest caution when interacting with indigenous flora." The engineer nodded. He wasn't about to take any unnecessary risks, especially with such strange plant life. But there was a part of him that was captivated by the beauty of it all. The colors, the glow, the way everything seemed so foreign yet so full of life. This place felt like something out of a dream. And yet, he knew better than to think it was just beautiful. There could be dangers lurking beneath the surface. As he continued to explore, the silence around him started to feel less peaceful and more oppressive. He hadn't seen any animals, no signs of movement other than the plants. The world was vast, stretching on for miles, but it was empty. At least, that's how it seemed. Then, in the distance, he saw something moving. At first, it was just a shape, far off on the horizon. It was too large to be an animal, too structured to be natural. His heart skipped a beat as he squinted to get a better look. The shape grew clearer as he approached, and his breath caught in his throat. It was a structure, a building of sorts, but it was unlike anything built by humans. It was massive, towering, and made of a material that shimmered, almost like liquid metal. The surface seemed to shift as if the building itself was alive, reacting to the engineer's presence. The AI's voice cut through the silence. Data analysis suggests this structure is made from an unknown alloy. No match found in existing databases. The engineer's mind raced. This was no ordinary building. It looked like it had been crafted by a species far more advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered. He couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. Whoever or whatever had built this place had mastered technologies far beyond his understanding. He continued toward the structure, his steps quickening. He couldn't pass up the chance to explore it. The walls of the building seemed to pulse, like the heartbeat of a living creature. As he approached, the massive doors slid open, seemingly of their own accord, inviting him inside. Taking a deep breath, the engineer stepped through the opening. The interior was dark, the walls lined with strange, glowing symbols that seemed to pulse in time with his movements. The air inside was cool, almost cold, but breathable. His helmet's lights flickered on as he ventured deeper into the structure, the strange symbols lighting up in response to his presence. The deeper he went, the more he realized that this place wasn't just a building. It was a repository of knowledge. The walls were lined with what looked like consoles, though they were unlike anything he had ever seen. The symbols on the walls seemed to be part of a complex system, one that he couldn't quite understand, but the shape of the technology was unmistakable. He approached one of the consoles, his heart racing with excitement. There were panels that seemed to respond to his touch, lights flickering to life as he interacted with them. He wasn't sure what they meant, but he knew this was the key to unlocking even more of this alien world. "Aye," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "Help me access this." The AI responded, calm as ever, analyzing data, attempting to decipher language structure. The engineer's mind raced. This was it. He had discovered something incredible, something that could change everything. But what secrets lay hidden within this building? He couldn't wait to find out. The engineer stared at the alien console, his heart racing with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. The soft hum of the building's strange technology echoed around him as the glowing symbols blinked in and out of sight, as if the structure itself was watching him. His fingers hovered over the panels, unsure of where to begin. He had always been a problem solver, a man who could fix things, but this was different. This was alien, and it felt like the beginning of something much bigger. "Aye," he said, his voice steady. "Are we getting anything yet?" The AI responded almost immediately, its calm voice breaking the silence. "Analysis ongoing. Decoding language structure. Progress is slow but steady." The engineer nodded, though he felt a growing sense of impatience. Time was slipping away, and he wasn't sure how long this strange world would remain stable. He needed answers, and fast. The future of the station, and possibly much more, rested on what he could find here. He took a deep breath and leaned closer to the console, trying to get a better sense of how the alien technology worked. The symbols on the wall continued to pulse with an eerie glow, and the more he focused on them, the more he began to notice patterns. Shapes, curves, lines, they all seemed to repeat in a rhythm that made sense, even though he didn't fully understand it. For a moment, it was as if he could feel the structure respond to his thoughts, as if it was communicating with him in a language beyond words. He closed his eyes for a second, letting the sensation wash over him. Then, without warning, the console's lights flickered, and the symbols rearranged themselves, forming something new. It was a map. The engineer blinked. It wasn't just a map of the building, it was something larger. It showed a network, vast and complex, stretching far beyond the alien structure. He recognized some of the locations marked on the map, though they were distorted, blurred, and unfamiliar. This wasn't just a map of this world. It was a map of a whole network of alien technology, hidden deep within the galaxy. "Aye," he breathed, his voice filled with awe. This is a map to other worlds." The AI's voice was filled with quiet wonder. Analysis confirms. The data suggests a network of advanced civilizations, each connected by this technology. The possibilities are vast. The engineer's mind raced. This discovery could change everything. It could mean access to untold knowledge, untapped resources, and the potential to leap far beyond what humanity had ever imagined. The station, which had been abandoned and left to die, could now be a doorway to the stars. He could rebuild it, not just the station, but Earth's future. He turned back to the console, his fingers moving quickly now, entering commands, trying to pull up more data. The walls seemed to respond to his actions, glowing brighter with each input. As the information began to stream across the console, he could see that it wasn't just the stations and ships that had been connected by this network. It was something far more profound. These worlds, these civilizations, they were all part of a greater whole, a system of interlinked knowledge and technology. For a moment, he felt overwhelmed. This was more than he had ever hoped for. But then he remembered his mission. The station needed to be rebuilt. This new knowledge, this new technology, could make that happen. He stepped back from the console, taking a deep breath as he surveyed the room. This alien place, with its strange technology, was now in his hands. He could feel the weight of it all. The possibilities, the responsibility, the future. The AI spoke again, its voice calm and steady, as if trying to anchor him in the moment. The network is now accessible. You have the power to control it, to rebuild. The engineer smiled. He knew what needed to be done. The station would be the key, the central hub from which humanity could explore the stars. He had the technology now, alien technology, but technology that he could understand and use. And with it, he could turn the forgotten, broken station into a thriving center of human achievement. Turning toward the console, he began inputting commands, accessing the network. It was slow at first, but the more he worked, the more the alien technology seemed to open up to him. Each new piece of data was like a puzzle falling into place. The walls pulsed with energy, the building itself coming alive as if it recognized what was happening. The engineer worked tirelessly, the hours slipping by unnoticed. Slowly but surely, the alien structure began to change. The dark corridors lit up with new energy. The walls repaired themselves, and the air began to hum with power. The systems started to reboot, and the once lifeless station began to take shape. And then the final piece clicked into place. The map appeared once more on the console, but now it was different. Instead of showing distant, unfamiliar worlds, it now displayed coordinates for humanity. His people, Earth. The engineer took a step back, his heart pounding. The station was no longer just a forgotten relic of a dead civilization. It was a beacon, a bridge between worlds, and the doorway to humanity's future. With a deep breath, the engineer spoke into the silence, his voice full of determination. This is just the beginning. And for the first time since he had been stranded on that alien station, he felt hope. Hope for the future. Hope for humanity. The station had been abandoned, left to die. But he had rebuilt it, better than ever. And now, it was ready to launch humanity into a new age.